Hi, I'm Bob, and I like to make stuff. What do you mean I can't say that? I am Bob, and I do like to make stuff. It's been taken? But 3 million subscribers? Well, in that case. Welcome to the Macke Makerspace. Hi, I'm Brother Bob Macke, and in my day job, I'm a research scientist at the Vatican Observatory. But in my free time, I've set up a modest little workbench where I work on a variety of maker projects. I draw my inspiration mostly from pop culture, religious art, astronomy, and space exploration. And I like to mash things up a bit every now and again, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. This build is inspired by the first Iron Man film. You know, the one that kicked off the whole Marvel massive movie multiverse. And in that film, you might have noticed that Tony Stark sometimes wore a distinctive gold ring. And his pal Cuba Gooding Brody also wore that same ring, that is, before he mutated into Don Cheadle Brody. They never really show what happened there. I don't know. I guess maybe he fell into a vat of toxic contracts or something. Anyway, he wears that ring prominently in the phone call scene. That happens to be an MIT class ring, commonly known as a brass rat, because it features a beaver on the face. And my boss here at the Vatican Observatory also has one. And I also happen to have one right here on my finger. But mine is fake silver because when I was a student I couldn't afford gold. We call this one a stainless steel rat, and fans of Harry Harrison will understand that reference. It just so happens that this past year was my 25-year class reunion from MIT. And as part of that celebration, they gave me this. This is a paperweight of my class ring, the 1996 brass rat. So what I want to do is create a nice little mount to display this. So for that, I'm going to take my inspiration again from that first Iron Man movie. If you remember, Pepper Potts created a little display mount for that Mark I arc reactor, which she turned into a little present for Tony. And that little present came full circle in the, spoiler alert, funeral at the end of Avengers Endgame. So Pepper's gift, I think, is perfect for today's project. It just needs a few small modifications in the design. So let's get started. So we're going to start by designing the mount in Tinkercad, hashtag not sponsored, which will give us models that we can send to the 3D printer. Now, I'm not normally going to bother to show much of the design process, but since this is the first video and practically the whole thing will be 3D printed, I'll make an exception here. So while the video runs, let's talk a little bit about Iron Man. The character of Tony Stark intrigues me. He's not really a superhero. He has no powers beyond his super intelligence and nearly unlimited resources for fabrication, which he uses to engineer his way into the big kids club. He's also very flawed as a human being, with lots of psychological issues. This makes him one of the most compelling characters in the MCU, with a character arc that spans the entire series up to Endgame. He isn't naturally inclined to be virtuous, and when we meet him, he's an egotistical, womanizing jerk. But he grows throughout the series, eventually becoming a man of commitment, self-sacrifice, and love. When he snaps his fingers, knowing it will kill him, we know that at the beginning of the series, he would never have been capable of something like that. So the weight of the snap is that much more profound, and it gives us all the feels. So afterwards I went in and broke the model up into individual pieces that could be printed separately, And here I'm redesigning the faceplate. I'm putting it into two parts, one that attaches to the rest of the mount and the other one that contains the text. They'll be printed separately and painted separately. So here I'm just using some of the default features of Tinkercad to create the ring of text. A little bit of adjustment, and there we go. And now it's just about ready to send to the printer. So I 3D printed it on a Prusa i3 Mark III, again, hashtag not sponsored. Each part was printed individually. And with that flexible build plate, it just pops right off, kind of. And I think that came out pretty well. Now the next thing is we have to mask off anything that is not going to be painted silver. Anything that has to remain black, and that includes all of the lettering. So I'm cutting up little strips of paper and going to stuff them into the letters. This took quite a long time to do. And then it's time to paint it. A little coat of silver paint goes a long way. And we have to remove all the masking. Letters first, and look how nice those things look after I've taken the masking out. And also several other parts I taped up, and now I need to remove all that tape. Removing the tape is really satisfying. So the next step is to assemble it. And for that, I'm put on the gloves. The reason for that is because of that silver paint. If you touch it or mar it in any way, it's really visible, and so I'm trying to protect it as much as possible. Now I'm using real bolts in this, and they screw in quite well. I did not plan any screw holes into the project, but the plastic is very soft, and the bolts basically just make their own threads. And so we can attach that first part of the mount to the pedestal and screw it in. It's going to be flexible, but it should be fairly well attached. It doesn't have to be a perfect engineering fit. It just has to hold. So now it's time to glue on the part that holds the ring. I tried to design this part to be as small as possible while still holding the ring secure, so that it should be fairly unobtrusive, shouldn't really show up. And so it really occupies as small a footprint as I could manage. Okay, now it's time for the faceplate. So a couple of drops of glue on either side, how to handle it. Now I'm going to flip it over on its face so I have a nice clean sheet of white paper, again to protect that silver coating. And the pedestal will hold it up while it dries. So there we have it. That cured pretty nicely. So we just happen to have lying around a glass case for displaying commemorative baseballs. I don't know why I don't actually have any commemorative baseballs, but it is the perfect size for this project. So now I'm lining up the pedestal on the acrylic base and found a nice spot for it where I then put down a piece of double sticky tape. You may be wondering why I'm using double sticky tape and not gluing it or securing it in some other permanent fashion. It's because I actually don't want this to be permanent. I want to be able to reuse that if I find some better use for it. But it's actually a fairly good solution, and I've had this thing for several months now and it's held quite securely. I'm also using double sticky tape to support the ring with the text on it, and I'm doing that for an entirely different reason. In this case, it's because I didn't want to risk marring that silver paint with the fumes from the glue. Does the ring fit? Oh yes, perfect. That's good, because this would have been a waste of time if it didn't. Okay, so now let's line up that ring of text. A little bit of small adjustment here. Once it is all nice and lined up, then we can just press it into place. All right, that looks pretty good. We'll put that glass case on. And now this project is finished. All we have to do is take it outside and get some nice beauty shots. Well, here it is. I like the way this turned out. Now, fans may object that this is class of 1996 and Tony's ring is 1987. And to them I say, well, this is my project, so I can take a few creative liberties and imagine that maybe he's my class instead of 87. And in fact, one of my classmates actually happens to be a vice president of Boston Dynamics, you know, the company that makes all the cool robots. And that's about as close as we get to Stark level technology in the real world. So I hope you like this project. Please do the YouTube-y things, you know, like and subscribe and all that stuff. It'll help other people find this content. My channel is not monetized, so this is all about sharing content and not about cashing in. I have several more cool projects coming up that you won't want to miss. Now, this channel is not sponsored by the Vatican Observatory, but for full disclosure, I should mention that I make use of their facilities and resources, but the materials and tools come out of my own personal budget. The Vatican Observatory's mission is to be a sign to the world of the compatibility of faith and science. If you'd like to support the work at the Vatican Observatory, or even just learn a little bit more about it, there's a link in the description below. Thank you. Welcome to the Macke Makerspace.
Va bene, dai.